Okay, hi everyone. We're a reactive audience. So we just want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing within Bayer in the last few years. And first of all, though, before I get going with this topic, can I see who is already somewhat familiar with intrapreneurship and what stands behind intrapreneurship? Yes, very good. Okay. So what we're seeing more and more is that intrapreneurship is a viable strategy that supports innovation, right? We're not just focusing anymore on collaborating with startups outside the organization or trying to buy them, but we're looking at trying to develop some of our own talent inside the organization. So intrapreneurship is the act of behaving like an entrepreneur, but within an established organization. And why are we here today? Really, for us, this is a bit of an experiment because we spend a lot of time dealing with innovation. Henning is head of corporate innovation. We work together with a lot of business units. What we haven't done very much is involve talent in the conversation. So that's really why we came to this conference, and it's the feedback that we would be interested in from you guys to understand, is there a role, and what is the role of talent development in supporting intrapreneurship? So let's look at intrapreneurship as a journey, because this is not something you learn in a day. It's not a one-off course that you can go on, right? Intrapreneurship is about developing the skills that enable you to launch new business ventures, essentially, unlock new value for your organization. And it's very much a journey. And in the beginning of that journey, people become very excited. So happiness is at an all-time high. And then when we challenge people to go and test their ideas and introduce it to customers, reality sets in, and we end up in this slump. It's called the trough of sorrow. And unfortunately, that's where most of this intrapreneurial activity is taking place. Until we start figuring out how does it work, right? And then we slowly come out of that trough of sorrow, and then we scale, and maybe we hand over the ideas to a business unit. So there's a lot of hand-holding involved, a lot of skills that need to be developed as we go along this journey. Henning, would you like to comment a little bit on the journey?
I think the journey is the most important part of it. In the beginning, at Bayer, we created an environment, kind of a culture to drive innovation. So even a few months before we started to work together, we created something, the innovation agenda, and created a network across the organization where we tried to inspire everybody in the company to take part in innovation. And that was really crucial. But then you need to find the people who are actually not able to just participate in creativity or in ideation sessions, but really to take these things through. And it's a special breed of people, and you need to support them all the way, because as you said, at the beginning everybody is hyped up and very enthusiastic, but then there's a lot of frustrations. Basically every experiment you do on your way brings more frustration, and you need to keep the people with the project. So the journey is really the goal, because then in the end somebody else in the business might scale the product, but you want to develop these people who are future leaders to really understand how innovation works, because only when you understand how innovation works in reality, we believe you can be an entrepreneurial leader and really grow the business 10, 20 years later.
So let's have a little look at what we're doing within Bayer as an end-to-end program. That journey we just described correlates quite nicely with 4 phases or stages of innovation. First, you need to have disruptive ideas and form new teams. You then need to find what's called problem-solution fit. Am I solving a real problem for a real customer in a feasible way? Before finding product-market fit. So is our product now and our offering gaining traction? And before we go to launching the product and trying to gain a bit more traction. So Henning, do you want to describe a little bit about how you've developed programs inside Bayer that track along these stages of innovation?
Yeah. So as I said in the beginning, we created the baseline. And when you see here the ideation stage, we have this network with innovation coaches. We recently published something in HBR on it, where we enable a lot of people, about 1,000 people inside the company, to come up with ideas to solve problems. But that doesn't really creativity is not equal innovation, or ideas are not equal innovation. So we needed to set up a structure inside the company that helps these ideas to actually find the right business opportunities, and matching business sponsors with people who want to drive these projects to have a good process and a structured framework to carry these things through. So this is when we engaged, probably about a bit more than 2 years ago, because we really liked the kind of stage gate approach you see here on the slide, taking, not giving a lot of money to project teams and then say, see you in 3 years, and we're excited what you come up with, but really with a few months only interventions to provide metered funding to these teams to really, and also to support them on their journey, because that was new to us as a company. We're very technology focused, so usually you develop a technology that takes very long. But here, looking at the changing environment, we need to be much more customer focused. So a lot of the program we do in the discovery is actually focused around the customer, discovering the problem, discovering the desirability of the idea. And this is really new, and we saw that it needs a lot of education along the way to support the project teams along the way.
Okay. So yeah, here's just a few pictures to highlight a few things. Initially, what happens is you come together for 2 days. So a lot of people ask me, how does it work? It's a mixture between physical on-site interaction and virtual interaction. So hand-holding is happening along the whole time. And it can vary from 10% of people's time to 20%. And then later during the incubation stage, ideally 50% of time. At the end. Yeah, we got 5 minutes at the end for questions. So why is this approach working, Henning, do you feel, when you involve intrapreneurs to contribute towards innovation?
Yeah, and I think it's really about the structure. So you see the picture of the kickoff. That's a very, very important event to get the energy together and get the teams started. But then it's really important to be well prepared for the kickoff. So the project teams we kick off, it's not just an idea we kick off, but this idea is also rooted in the business. So the teams have to have a business sponsor who actually commits that if these ideas are successful in the end, they are implemented and the sponsor has the resources to do it. Otherwise, these projects end in nirvana potentially. And then it's also around the mentoring and the preparation of the teams to make them familiar with the lean startup methodology that we are using, so they can right away from day one start. And we'll get into this later, also to involve talent management. So with our innovation coach network, we have looked for talents and involved talent management to find those coaches. And we're now also getting into working very closer together with HR on these topics here, because we see, in the first 2 years, I think we just got the people in who kind of volunteered to do it, but we really see that it's important to have the right people on the team. And if the team mixture doesn't fit, then the team runs into challenges, and we have a few examples where that actually happens. So I think structure and preparation is really important. And then it's about the mentoring. So the mentors, you know, I think in the workshop, everybody loves them, and then a few weeks later, everybody hates them, because the mentors are there to push the teams further, to do the things they don't want to do, to go out, meet the customer, talk to the customer, without a nice, beautiful, shiny product in their hand, but with just some rough sketches, ideas. So teams really don't like that, and we get actually complaints in corporate about the coaches, and they ask things that are impossible, and but we have navigated around this, and usually after like 6-8 weeks into the program, teams love the coaches, because they, after going over this hurdle, they really see what is possible, what wealth of information is right out there that they didn't tap into earlier. And I think this you can only learn through a personal experience. It's not something you can teach in a classroom or so. It's you have to push the people out to make the contact to their customers, and that has such a strong impression.
Yeah. So mentoring is a key aspect all the way through. And here's just another picture of Kickbox program, which was adopted from the Adobe Kickbox program. Has anyone heard of Kickbox before? Okay, not very many people. Okay, look into it, because it's a very affordable program that can get you started with your innovation initiatives. And Bayer used this to feed the top of the funnel. And then we further develop the projects from there. I think this clicker is not working so well, guys. Can you go to the next slide?
I mean, one comment to the kickbox, maybe since the slide is up. In the original Adobe program, there's a kickoff workshop, and the teams are handed this box, which supplies you with everything you need to know about a lean startup. What we actually did together with Jan's team, we support with continuous coaching during the first 3 months. And that proved extremely successful. While the success rate as Adobe is, according to what they say, about 3%, we have more than 20% success rate. And I think it's due to the coaches really pushing the teams along the way and not letting the teams lose.
6% Adobe.
6, okay, so 28 out of 2,000.
So obviously, as you go through this journey, there are many skills that you can pick up, right? So I just wanted to highlight that here for you guys. It's not all about fun and games and creativity. There are key skills that are very important in being successful with innovation. And as you go along that journey and through the phases, from left to right, the deeper those skills become. So let's look at, though, who is an entrepreneur, because this is there's a common myth inside corporates that they feel like, although it's potentially everyone's responsibility to innovate. Yeah, okay. Hello, right. So, one thing you can do in the beginning that can dramatically help increase your success rate is make sure you have the right people working on projects. We found that there's a 30 to 40% difference in running programs where you have screened for a potential fit with intrapreneurs and programs where you have not. So just like how successful CEOs have the common personality traits, right? Based on the Briggs-Myers test. So I think it's, ENTJ is the profile. It's similar with intrapreneurs. There's a particular characteristics that make sense. So I think that's something that's very interesting for the HR community to know that you can actually filter out relatively easily who is a good fit based on personality. And then other factors come into play, like what business units do they come from? Are they relevant for the idea? How much passion are they showing for the idea, etc. Okay, and just on that note, do not confuse this with seniority. The best entrepreneurs are not necessarily the most senior people. So when we're looking at talent pools and where should these people come from, you will actually be surprised. They can come from any corner of the business. So what I'm showing you here on the graph are 3 companies: Kluber, Lubrication, Migros, and Allianz. With Allianz, this program was positioned as a high potential program for future COOs in the organization. When we tested them, they were actually shown to be a much worse fit personality-wise compared to people in other organizations who were less senior, okay? So if you want to de-risk your innovation, start to think about other talent pools where these people might come from. Do you want to add a few words to that, Henning?
I think it's really important to find, I think it works, yeah, it might. I think it's really important to find the right people. Yeah, the talent identification process might show you the people who are very similar to your senior leadership today. If you're looking for people who are more disruptors, questioning the status quo, you need to look also for some additional traits. And this is not only once people are in the company, you also need to adjust the recruiting process according to this.
I mean, that's my dream, is applying all of this to recruitment, because then you can really change the culture in the organization, right? And on that note, once people go through the program, ultimately what you're looking to do is, yes, create a lot more Steve Jobs. So let's have a lot more entrepreneurs in the organization. But then we also need to train innovation managers and let them understand how do they need to be investing in innovation projects and evaluating them. So just like how a Silicon Valley investor would, right? Mark Andreessen would manage a portfolio of innovation. And then we want some of these best people to become innovation mentors so that we don't have to do the mentoring anymore, but your people act as internal mentors
and they can go and train other people, and that's how you can scale up the whole program. Okay, so I just want to leave you with a bit of food for thought when we look at this graph. Let's play a numbers game. Does anyone here in a company that has over 100,000 employees, or around that number? Some of you, okay. And if we look at the ideation phase, if you aim to include only half of your workforce in contributing to ideas, right? And if we did a kickbox program, we have 3 people in a team, that would generate 17,000 ideas already. And we already know that 14% of those ideas can easily make it into a discovery phase. They're worth funding for that next step. And then normally we're seeing that 30% of those projects convert to being funded and going into incubation. And then 50% of those projects could become actual ventures that get launched. So you're walking into the office every day and 1 new project is being launched, roughly. And then if we carry that over to the next phase of growth, right? From the 357, maybe only 133 made it, so around 40%, that actually managed to grow within the 18 months. And if you average a value of 100 million for each project, that maybe in the next 2 years they should be able to return that amount, you're looking at 10 billion plus in revenue. And I myself, within my project at Intel was calculated to be worth $1 billion to Intel over a 4-year period. So it is possible for people to create this kind of value if there's a process. And really my question here is, we know that 15% of the workforce can be a good fit for intrapreneurship during the discovery phase. Then the best ones, maybe half of those are a good fit for incubation, and then a bit lower, 3% maybe are a good fit to continue to launch and really do that long-term intrapreneurship. So that's the question to you guys, is really, you know, how is your role in making that happen and using intrapreneurship to help transform culture? So Henning, I'll leave you with a few words on that.
Yeah, so I think it really has 2 dimensions when you look into talent. You look into the entrepreneurial talent, the people who you want to drive your growth projects, but you also look into all the leadership talent, because in the future it will be even much more important than in the past to manage ambidexterity. So to run a cash cow business on the one side with very much cost scrutiny, and on the other side have the resources necessary to invest into your growth business. And we believe that every leader who has to be able to manage this ambidexterity actually has a big advantage if she or he has experience in going through this innovation track and knowing firsthand what it means to be in such a project. So they are the 2 sides, the entrepreneurs themselves, but then also all the leaders.
Great, thanks Henning. Okay, we're 2 minutes over, so we need to open it up now for questions, and I'll be happy to answer. Just shout, I guess.
Okay, so my question is about the people. You showed a picture of the teams that are working on creativity, I guess. How did you select those people? Were there self-nominated? Was there a recruitment process for them? So how are they selected?
Yeah, so the mechanism we used here basically was sort of self-selected. So we were actually for this program looking for business challenges, and then the sponsor had to put the team together. We gave the sponsor recommendations, who are the people, and usually, you know, the leadership has an idea who in the area are actually people who could do it, and they get the team together, usually 5 people. We also have other programs where we artificially create a team, which is a bit more complex, because you also need to align it with the managers of the people, because they really need the time on the side. Yeah. Here I see the first question. Was it only for products or also for internal innovation within the company? So actually we like stuff that is customer focused, but also we had a few programs that focused on internal topics. For example, we had a project in the first round which was around educating our own people about our products. And I remember the situation when the project lead won the pitch. He showed 6 projects from our company on the screen and asked who knows all 6. And there were 100 people and only 2 raised their hands. So he immediately won and could run the project. And the educational tool we created now gets used in many different other functions and is shared. So it's not for the customer, but for internal. But of course, in the end, we need to create value for the customer. So these internal things are nice to have, and I think it's also good to do it, but it's really important to focus on the customer.
Okay, the best entrepreneurs may not be senior, but how can we stop the latter squashing the former's initiative? Yeah, that's where the executive education comes into play. And we do a lot of work around innovation metrics. There's a topic called innovation accounting. And that's really what these executives need to understand, is that the way you judge and evaluate innovation or startup ideas is very different to how you judge ideas coming out of the core business. So for each of those phases that we had up on the screen earlier, there are executive, mini education courses that you can give and expose people to help them not squash the activities of the entrepreneur, because that would be the worst thing. We do not want to end up with orphan products, right? Okay.
You connect the objective setting of the people. How do you connect their work and their commitment to innovation into their own objective and bonus at the end?
Their bonus. Right.
Yeah, it's part, so if they are part on these projects, we have a performance management process, and it gets integrated into the performance management for that period of time. So it's not really stock options, so we're not there, but it's a part of the performance management, and they kind of get appreciation there.
Yeah, and I actually have another view on that, is that you don't. Because it shouldn't be necessary. Intrapreneurs are very voluntary. They like to solve problems. They like to be enabled to add value and do things. They should not be doing it because they think they're going to earn money or get extra reward. So that in itself could be a selection criteria. But yeah, I think ultimately long term, you want to work it into their, at least the evaluations that are being given out.
And, Jan, to build on what you said, it's also to protect the employees from their managers taking over all the time, right? If the managers agree to put it into the performance management, even if it doesn't have a financial impact right there, but it's clearly that they need time for this. And time is the most precious resource. So while you're totally right, they are very motivated to do it whatever it takes, but this gives them a little bit of assurance for the time they need to do it.
Do we need to stop there? How do you deal with the disappointment of the information that disappointment of the employees? 97% that don't progress.
I can share a 30-second anecdote on this. When we did the first pitch, we had all the 28 teams together. They all pitched. We were all happy, the 10 winning teams on stage. And then I suddenly realized, oh my God, we don't have 10 winners. We have 18 losers. And that was a disaster. So on that day, I talked to all the teams personally, and we followed up with all of them. And I think it's really about the appreciation for the work. And then not to just say, okay, thank you, but what are the options? How can we build your learning into other projects? Actually, 8 or 9 of the projects continued in a different setting. So it's really, you have to be you have to take care of the people, because they gave all their energy, they discovered something, and it's not about winning or losing, it's about creating insights for your company, and that is what needs to be appreciated.
Yeah, but also along the way, just because they didn't get funded doesn't mean they lost necessarily, because they learned so much along the way. They're actually very grateful they could be part of the process. So everyone goes home a winner. Yeah. All right, thank you guys.